Well, we were fortunate to be raised around a lot of family. We had aunts and uncles by the dozens and cousins. Uh, we had close contact with all of them as we grew up. My father, as I said earlier, and mother both had 7 brothers and sisters, and they had their families, although there wasn't much family in any of the rest of them. It wasn't any as large as our family. But we had our cousins, and we had people that, they were people that were born and raised in an environment just like my mother and father, and they were just down-to-earth people, all of them trying to succeed in life and carry on. I think there was only 1 or 2 of them that had really what you'd call a real formal education. Certainly my dad didn't have one. He went to the 5th grade in grammar school, but I think it was more a matter of, it wasn't so much, I don't think he liked school. I think that was about it, if you get right down to the bare facts. And I don't think it was because of, or come from poverty or anything like that. I think it was just merely a thing. And although he was one of the early, what you'd call, an early, I think in a way, the way I got figured, he was somewhat of a juvenile delinquent, one of the first. But anyhow, he was a good man and a good provider and an honest man, and he had brothers and sisters just like him. Some a little bit different than him, and maybe a little bit, whatever. But we enjoyed them all. We looked at all of them. On my father's side, there was my Uncle Ed and my Uncle Jack and my Uncle Fred, and then there was my Aunt Lena and my Aunt Ethel and my Aunt Kate and my Aunt Rose. And then on my mother's side there was Aunt Hazel and Aunt Margaret and Aunt Sadie and Uncle Charlie and Uncle Owen and Uncle George. And then there was one brother that died early that I didn't know. His name was Francis. He died when he was about 10 or 12, according to my mother. But, so there were a lot of people around us, and they all had their own spouses. They all married and had their families. Some of them had 2 or 3. I had cousins. The one family married, my Aunt Rose married a fellow by the name of Henry. And they had 4 children. And they always named my favorite cousin, or they named my favorite cousin, they named him Harold. And so his name, although her name was Rose Harold, they named their boy Harold, and his last name was Henry. So his name was Harold Henry. So when you think about the names and the play on the names, it always kind of tickled the hell out of me because...
Should have named one of your kids Harold.
Pardon me?
Should have named one of your kids Harold.
Well, yeah, it could have ended up that way, But Harold Henry was one of my favorite cousins, and that picture I showed you today, that little little baby, standing beside me, that little baby was Harold Henry. That was my cousin. So we've kept in contact with all of them over the years. They used to come by, my Aunt Josephine and Uncle Fred on my father's side. Uncle Fred married a gal by the name of Josephine. And they had 2 girls by the name of Jane and Margaret Harold. And they came almost every Saturday night when we lived on Kirby Street. And we all, they'd bring a few rolls over something, and we'd have some coffee or whatever. And my father and mother, as we children played, and my father and mother would talk. And that was a big Saturday night. Uncle Fred came over. And then we had another uncle, Uncle Charlie, and he always came by, my mother's brother, and he was a good soul, and he always brought us a quart of ice cream, and boy, I can always see him coming with that ice cream, because that was a big thrill to get some ice cream in those days, because it wasn't that plentiful around, it wasn't that common.